Well, I guess it's time for a potentially unpopular review. Today's movie is one that is beloved by many, but is it as great as we remember? Let's take a look at the 1939 movie The Wizard of Oz. We're going to be looking at it as a movie and comparing it to the original book by L. Frank Baum. I'm Ollamh, and welcome to Geek Corner Review. It's quite widely known for this movie that the real-world parts are in black and white. But what might not be so well known is that this is actually in accordance with the book. Kansas is described as being gray. The house is gray, the sky is gray, even Uncle Henry and Auntie Em are gray. We open the story with Dorothy pestering her aunt and uncle about her dog having gotten into trouble with a neighbor. Also, the farmhands, which, by the way, are not in the original story. They try to tell her to avoid going by the neighbor's place and Toto won't get in trouble. But that's just silly talk, according to Dorothy. Seriously, this kid deserves to be locked up in the house as much trouble as she causes. And here's one complaint I have with the movie: the songs. I generally don't like musicals. Nothing takes away my suspension of disbelief as quickly as somebody randomly breaking into song. So the neighbor comes by to pick up the dog that has been bothering her and her cat. Come to find out that Toto bit the woman, so she's going to take the dog to the sheriff to be destroyed. The law seems to be on the neighbor's side. Dorothy is quite upset. But how can she seriously say that Toto is nice and innocent when he bit a woman? Toto promptly escapes, runs back to Dorothy, and she decides that they have to run away to keep safe. I can't help but think that the farm would be much better off without the spoiled little brat. They come across Professor Marvel, and we get to see Toto being a dick again by eating some of the man's food without permission. Professor Marvel tells Dorothy's future, telling her that Auntie Em is upset about Dorothy running away, causing her to run back home. While she's heading home, the Twister arrives. And for the three people in the world who aren't familiar with the story, the house, Dorothy, and Toto get swept up and blown away, which is a lot more whimsical than even the child-oriented book describes. As Dorothy leaves the house, we move to the fully colored land of Oz. Enter Glinda the Good Witch, who informs Dorothy that her house has landed on the Wicked Witch of the East. Never mind the fact that the witches of Oz wear white, and that's why everybody thinks Dorothy is a witch. There's a much bigger change that really tears a plot hole in the story. Glinda, in the movie, is the Witch of the North. She points out that the ruby, not silver, slippers have moved to Dorothy's feet. She states that they must be very powerful in magic. She doesn't point out that they can carry her back to Kansas until the end of the movie. The problem is that in the original story, Glinda is the Witch of the South and doesn't know about Dorothy and the slippers yet, so can't tell her how to get home. The entire plot hole that people complain about is fabricated because the Hollywood filmmakers wanted to change shit up. So we get a few more songs, including a very cheery song about manslaughter. And Dorothy is off on her journey to the Emerald City. On her way, she meets the Scarecrow, which should look very familiar. It seems the filmmakers decided that just introducing characters in Oz wasn't right. They had to have a real-world counterpart. The Scarecrow gets his own song, and Dorothy agrees to take him with her to the wizard in hopes that he can give the straw man some brains. They move along the yellow brick road and run into the Tin Woodsman, rusted in place, who, of course, once he can talk and move, breaks into song about his lack of heart.
And the boy who shoots the arrows, if I only had a heart.
Dorothy plans to take the Tin Man to the Emerald City because the wizard just has to give him a heart. He just simply must. Quite a presumptuous little brat, isn't she? She doesn't even know the wizard, and already she's making promises for him. The witch turns up to taunt the party, which again doesn't happen at all in the original story. So the gentleman promised to make sure she gets to the wizard. Dorothy realizes that they seem to be familiar, but can't seem to remember the people that she went to for help back in Kansas. They reach a jungled area where they are accosted by a lion, who sounds a lot like one of the Three Stooges. When finally Dorothy stands up and faces the lion, it turns out he's a huge coward. So of course he joins them on their journey in hopes that the wizard will give him courage. The witch isn't happy that they haven't been stopped yet and enchants a field of poppies between them and the Emerald City. Again, a huge change from the book. The field of poppies shows up in the original story, but it's just a normal danger of the Land of Oz, not a special danger set up by the Wicked Witch. Also, they don't get help from a clan of mice. Glinda decides to make it snow, and that somehow cures them. I'm guessing that the cold weather is supposed to have killed the poppies, but it's not really clear. There's so many dangers that the movie just skips over that are just a general part of Oz. They finally make it to the Emerald City, which is another large difference from the original story. In the book, anyone entering the city is required to have special spectacles locked onto their face, which have green lenses. So everything appears green, even when it's not. Also, it's very specifically stated that there are no animals in the Emerald City. Further stories state that there are no horses in the Land of Oz. But that doesn't prevent the movie from adding in the horse of a different color to the city. So the party gets cleaned up with another song, because nobody just talks in Oz. The witch spells out "Surrender Dorothy in the Sky." How she does it, again, isn't clear. Does she light her broom on fire? Does she have canisters of smoke? Nobody knows, and it's never explained. Instead of being introduced to the wizard one by one on different days, they are announced all together. But before that happens, we need another song. After which they meet the wizard. He's none too happy about their request for help. To get the help they want, they have to bring the Wicked Witch's broomstick. Not kill her by order, just bring the broomstick.
Bring me the broomstick of the Witch of the West.
So the quartet sets off to find the Wicked Witch. Thankfully, there are signposts letting them know the direction and length of their journey. And where the hell did they get their weaponry? The lion has a sprayer and a huge butterfly net. The Tin Man, in addition to his axe, now has a pipe wrench. And the Scarecrow has a walking stick and a fucking revolver. How did they get these things? Does the Emerald City have an extremely eclectic armory? Explain, please. I've put up with a lot of changes and random crap from this movie without demanding any background, but this is enough. And does the sprayer say witch remover on it? Really? How many drugs do you have to be on for this movie to make sense? So the witch sends her winged monkeys out to capture Dorothy and bring her to the castle. Why she didn't do this earlier is another puzzle glossed over, but she finally gets her stuff together. Unlike the book, she doesn't send out her wolves, bees, and such. Instead, the rest of the party is just seen as being useless. True to the origins of the movie, the dog is Dorothy's weakness. She'll give the witch the slippers to save the annoying little hairball that caused nothing but trouble. Toto runs away as the witch decides to kill Dorothy somehow. The rest of the party meets up with Toto, who leads them to the castle, where they were already going from the start. Apparently, they didn't know where to go. They wind up dressed up as guards and march into the castle to save Dorothy. They break her out of what can only be described as the Room of Death. The witch sets the scarecrow on fire and Dorothy puts him out with a bucket of water. It just so happens to also splash the witch, which is her one weakness. Everyone is happy again, and the party presents the broom to the wizard. As Dorothy proves again, in case there was any doubt, she's a whiny, spoiled brat.
I'll have to give the matter a little thought. Go away and come back tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Oh, but I want to go home now.
Toto exposes the wizard as a normal man, as the wizard gives the visitors what they want. Again, a departure from the story. And instead of actually making brains, a heart, and a courage potion, he gives them knickknacks that makes them believe in themselves. I suppose this is a more realistic message to the audience than the book. All you need to do is believe in yourself and hear enough bullshit, and it's as good as anything else. Of course, Dorothy getting home requires the use of the balloon that brought the wizard here originally. Just as they're ready to take off, Toto proves that he is a huge dick and chases after a cat. The wizard winds up taking off by accident, and Dorothy still thinks the world of that dog. So re-enters Glinda, telling Dorothy that she always had the power to get back. The only reason she didn't tell Dorothy about the slippers before was because she wouldn't have believed her. Dorothy spouts out some BS about everything she wanted always being in her backyard.
That it wasn't enough just to want to see Uncle Henry and Auntie Em. And it's that if I ever go looking for my heart's desire again, I won't look any further than my own backyard. Because if it isn't there, I never really lost it to begin with.
And what about Toto? He was the reason for all of this. It wasn't about looking for something new or looking for your heart's desire. It was about Toto being put down. He bit a woman after breaking into her garden and had a legal order to be destroyed because of that. You ran away with him after he escaped, and that's why you wound up in the house when the twister hit. The lesson of her Oz journey makes no goddamn sense. Dorothy wakes up in her bed back in Kansas and come to find out it was all just a dream. All the characters in Oz were dream versions of the farmhands and such. This is quite possibly the biggest variation from the book. It wasn't a dream in the book. There weren't real versions of the Scarecrow, Lion, and Tin Man. And that was The Wizard of Oz, quite possibly a textbook example of movie makers taking a book and tearing it to shreds. All the evil in Oz was a result of the Wicked Witch instead of just natural dangers. The story was changed to try and provide some lesson of be happy with what you have and don't go looking for anything more. It would have been a good lesson if it weren't for the fact that Dorothy had already decided before her trip to Oz not to run away since it would break Auntie Em's heart. Now, the lesson might have been a product of the time, The movie was made during the last year of the Great Depression, so telling people not to go chasing their dreams was important for that specific time, when people were picking up and moving, trying to chase jobs where they thought they could be found. Now I know a lot of people will disagree because this is a classic, but so is Birth of a Nation, the original D.W. Griffith epic that praised the KKK as being a group of good guys. If you want a good Wizard of Oz story, read the book. It has fewer plot holes, doesn't try and give you a bunch of fluff as a moral lesson, and is all around a much more pleasing story. So what do you think of The Wizard of Oz? Have you both read the book and seen the movie? If so, which do you prefer? If not, which have you not taken in, and do you think it's worth checking out to compare them? Leave a comment down below, send us a tweet or a post on our Facebook page, and let's discuss it. As always, thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more from Ollamh Productions. Cheerio!
Oh, that's kind of cool. When the zombie's head is in the water, you get that the distortion of the
Just a defense like all other cases, so not a right. But now it is a right. It is something that has to be considered.